Hey everyone, I hope you are doing fine. Today, Chris is with me, my very lovely friends from master study. And today, we will talk about sustainability and how it relates to the science, something very unappreciated in the community. Today, we want to discuss around. Chris, could you tell about yourself and your background?
Yes. So as Cenk mentioned, we've done the same masters, molecular techniques in life science here in Stockholm, and I've stayed to do my PhD in ecology and evolution of microbes, so bacteria and other microorganisms. Mm, my background before the masters was biochemistry, so I actually switched into environmental science during our masters. And yes, I switched into environmental science, and sustainability is not only about the environment, but personally I would see myself as even more an environmentalist than sustainability specialist. But I happen to be to lead a group at my uni now called KTH Students for Sustainability, and I think I am involved in those issues because yeah, we're gonna talk soon about what the buzzword here actually means. But I think those concepts are crucial for how our society goes forward. I'm also involved in some more climate crisis related projects with Klimatstudenterna. That's like a Swedish web network of students who act on these issues. One of them, Third Task, is actually also an outreach program where there is a YouTube channel, so you can check it out. But I think we can talk about it later. Let's stick to the main topic.
Probably in the parallel universe, you are inactive in the other countries.
I hope there are other parallel stories of other human beings who do the world. I'm quite sure there are.
So I think it's better to be in the same page, and that's why I wanna talk about what is sustainability in general as a term. What we should understand from this.
Okay, so I think, of course, when it comes to dictionary, it's ability to sustain yourself, so to maintain yourself in some form that is recognizable. I think the term here would mostly relate to our society being sustainable. So that means, first of all, not it can be used in as opposition to more exploitation based view of economics and our society. So it's for our society to be sustainable, we need to keep our use of natural resources and our impact on the Earth system within some boundaries. There is this very cool framework and important framework of planetary boundaries. So there are some elements of Earth system which we put pressure on, and they can only sustain some amount of pressure, and then the consequences are unpredictable and dramatic. So this is one part of it, and then there is the part, and those planetary boundaries. This is of course the climate, but also biodiversity, nutrient cycles, how much pollution we put out the ozone layer, which is a bit better now.
These are defined the sustainable goals.
No. Sustainability goals are not directly related to planetary boundaries. No. We'll talk about sustainability goals, sustainable development goals soon.
What is planetary boundary?
Planetary boundaries is a framework to conceptualize, to show different elements of the environment of the Earth system, which we put pressure on, and the boundaries are how much pressure we can put on them, how much we can disrupt them until we don't know what happens.
Do you have an idea about annually? These are the maximum you can reach?
It's more in a, and that's also part of the framework. It's more in a longer term. For example, let's take a relatively easily measurable example of climate system. It's about how much we can, how much of warming we can lead to for the system to. I mean, yeah, it's also not binary. It will not work that way that we stop below some point. There will be no damage, but the damage does not increase linearly. So that's something to keep in mind. And the other part is the things that we want to sustain. So that's more socio-economical part. That's the idea that, again, it can be here more opposed to growth, where we just want more and more for ourselves. And sustainability would be more about providing everybody with things that are directly related to not crossing planetary boundaries, so not disrupting the environment, like food or water, but also things like justice, peace, political voice, community, or a network. That's two ways to frame the same thing, basically. And here there is the concept of sustainable development that's often used, especially in policy, especially around United Nations. And that's the idea of how humanity moves forward. That it can develop. That's an, I would believe, alternative word for growth in a way that allows us to live on this planet for a long time. The original definitions were about meeting the needs of current generations without leveraging the possibility to live for future generations. But I guess it's quite clear that this definition was from the 80s, and the future generation, that's us already.
Okay.
I mean, and it's also not the best framework, because like when it comes to environmental crisis, many people around the world feel it already now. It is happening. So it's not only distributed in time, it's distributed also spatially and across classes in society.
Okay, then we have a general term, sustainability.
Yeah.
And then we have sustainability goals that we really focus and improve in each goals as a whole. And then by doing this, you want to expand the planetary boundaries. Actually, something always should stay, and we should expand the goals as much as possible, develop them.
So the goals are something that you meet, and actually, so sustainable development goals are something that the United Nations has agreed on the general meeting in 2015. So around the time of also Paris Agreement, the big climate agreement, and it was connected to something called Agenda 2030. So it kind of, and later, because people were in the beginning, the goals are very vague, like no poverty, life on land, life on water. So later, more specific targets were added to them. So there is a deadline. How well we are on meeting this deadline?
Are we gonna punished?
Yeah, that's the thing. If it would be a free trade agreement, there would probably be punishment. But nobody monetizes
it. From the nature, probably. You're gonna be punished by it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think nature has such a, if you want to personalize it, such a deep feeling of justice that it's gonna actually punish those who are most responsible for it. But there is something to it.
Okay.
But yeah, so there are 17 goals, and that also relates to what we talked about before. So I think first 8 or 10 goals are most related to the socio-economical foundations of our society. So like no poverty, good health and well-being, no hunger, good education. There are more controversial ones. One mentions, for example, growth, so it still relates to the idea of perpetuated economic growth. But it is a consensus. It is something that United Nations agreed on, and it is something we can refer to as kind of a common values framework for the society moving forward, going through a kind of a transformation. You can call it a sustainable transformation, where we acknowledge that we are really now living on borrowed resources, borrowed time. Like we are living on resources we don't have. So
what I understand actually is limitless. You can always expand these goals with different amount of goals, and also you can expand them within the goal. You can always reach something better, right? So it's kind of a limitless aim reaching point.
I mean, that's also the idea with development. So if you would compare it to a human stops growing at some point, but a lot of most interesting parts of development go on then after you stop growing. And it's similar here. I think that's a framework still for our times, but some of them are universal. One could see it as another step moving forward pushing forward the ideas like human rights and all of that. It's again a United Nations framework. So I mentioned that the first 8 to 10 ones are more related to the socio-economical foundations, but then there are ones that are connected to more the planetary boundaries, so the F system. There is also some criticism about that. So, for example, life on water and life on land, life in water and life on land. Those are just 2 goals, and some people say, but without meeting those goals, we don't have anything else because we don't have a livable planet, and that's a fair point. So maybe
Why not?
the way,
Why not air?
yeah, that might be one of the criticisms. I don't know. I think here it was life, so we mostly divide life into terrestrial and marine or aquatic. There are also like last 2 goals are more about peace and collaboration. Yeah, and that's also the idea that we kind of need to do it together to actually meet those challenges.
I mean, it seems like they are related to the environmentalism, but in general, actually, is needed for being happy in general, like being in the harmony.
Yeah, it's not only
very fundamental.
environmentally.
Exactly, it sounds very fundamental.
No. It's totally not only environmentally. It is about how human society functions in the end. The environmental part is here just the fact that we realize that we live on this planet together with other elements on it, and we grown so big that we cannot ignore our impact on them. But there are, as I said, more goals actually refer to how we live with other humans.
Okay, so then I want to bring the topic to the science part, the interaction between the sustainability and the science. And I think one of the most important questions is actually how does science help in sustainability? What are the responsibilities of us? I'm asking more like with the knowledge we gain from science, starting knowing something we don't know, can we expand these goals, improve them, have a better idea about the environment, diversity, etc. Something you are doing as a science as well, your project. I'm asking in this relation.
So first thing I mentioned that we live in environmental crisis, and we would not know that without science. So a comparison, so humans have had impact on the environment for a long time. The difference between us, for example, the communities that led to extinction of, let's go with Hollywood example of mammoths. The difference is that they had no idea what they are. We do, and that's responsibility, but that's also chance. And that also refers to how many of most recent environmental movements started. So around 2018, 19, the biggest movements were Fridays for Future and Extinction Rebellion. Fridays for Future in the beginning had on its mouth, listen to the science, and Extinction Rebellion was co-founded by scientists and activists. It was kind of a union. Those slogans on listen to the science, they got a bit quieter over the years. And it's not because they believe less in science. I mean, it's not that they believe less in what science has shown, but what they realize, and that's something that we as a scientists also need to take as a responsibility, that is that science does not have all the answers.
So, but why is interesting? Because climate can change, right? But if you don't have any technology or methodology to quantify it, you can say that actually there is nothing wrong, right? I think this is something science really valuable in this sense. We have some quantitative measurements about the environment we are living in. It brings us the problems we are facing right now.
I mean, that's the interesting part with this. So with these issues, because we actually had this chance. So we saw that climate is changing in the 80s already, or even earlier. Like the first records were from, doesn't matter the history. In the 80s, it was obvious. And then what you are saying was true. You could not see it with the naked eye. Now you can see it with the naked eye. So actually, it shows some kind of a problem with connection between science and society that we knew, and we have done. It's even hard to say we have done not enough. We hardly have done anything. So this is something that scientific community needs to rethink. How this is related. I know we're gonna talk later about how sustainable development helps science or the bigger framework.
You can pass through it.
I think we should come back to it because, of course, there's more that science could, the role of science here. But here it is a reciprocal relationship where it exposed that we know things that if you only step out from very coarse and mechanistic scientific thinking, we know that they can be catastrophic, and we don't know how to convey them. And it's also so. I think science could help in like long-term sustainable development by being out there in an accessible form, by coming back to some form of showing the world to the people, and not trying to be an abstract authority that one can only submit to or oppose to, because that does not work. So that's also part of the societal needs that should be that were neglected in more materialistic societies that we live in, but are part of being human, of connecting with the world around us. And of course, I on purpose I've been putting that to the end, not to give it typical pinnacle of scientific of scientific development, which is technology. But of course, technology also helps. We probably have technology to, if everything would go right, to solve most of the crisis we are in. But if it will be easier with new technology.
Actually, yeah, you mentioned very nice analogy, this feedback mechanism between sustainability and the science.
Mhm.
So now, if we change the question from the perspective of how does sustainability or sustainability goals help in science? Actually, what we are doing as a PhD project is very, very valuable in this sense. We are, for example, looking into the diversity, the lake or in the sea system, and somehow following them, how they're going to be preserved and blah blah. And actually, you can reflect back and understand some mechanism how to keep the, for example, life in the sea. So how we can reflect back actually.
Yeah, so just referring to what you said, if I understand your comment correctly, the mess we are in can bring us closer to the world. Like we need to, there is a pressure now to actually look at what is happening in the world and not just not come up with fancy tools. I mean, I don't mean most of the technology is not fancy tools, but to rethink what is important. But the most basic thing in which sustainable development helps for science is making it possible in the future. Like in my view, science is a long-term endeavor, which does not necessarily literally build up on over generation and generation. It's more of a revolutionary process where it switches paradigms and all of that. So it's not linear accumulation of knowledge, but still, it only works in long term. And sustainability means that we want our societies to run in long term. Other than that, yes, reframing what is important and maybe something we touched upon earlier. So connecting us more to the world and to the society. So studying the things I said important, that's a very, like, I do still love and think and that basic science and even often curiosity driven science is very important and valuable. But maybe even for that, we have broader view on what science is for, except of only being something that lays foundation for technology, then maybe we can actually look at the world differently.
Yeah, I have one interesting question for you out of curiosity. So now I can see general investments or funding and grants going into the science different fields, and they are generally accumulated in the cancer fields, for example, or some metabolism diseases. And yeah, these are like horrible for our society, etc. We need to keep these people alive. That's why huge investment going on. But something we are missing is the effect of environment. We are facing it every day, and I don't see so much fundings or grants and such stuff going into that fields. Actually, maybe one is more appearing like okay, you can directly see the cancer and its effect on the family and all the people individually. But actually, like environment is more drastic and affecting much globally. We are not talking about hundreds, thousands of people. We are talking about billions.
No, thank you. It is a beautiful example and one that I'm knowledgeable in, so I can take it on the medical sciences. So there's been a huge push on finding a cure for everything. You mentioned cancer, but not really that. A bit less on finding the causes, and an important environmental example is air pollution. I mean, it's been really in last 10 years, there have been some very basic studies on how air pollution impacts us. And we knew that it's important for years. I come from the most polluted region of European Union, and it just lays so much damage. I mean, literally, if you look at the official statistics of the government, which is partially responsible for the big part negligence of all the authorities over the years are responsible for the crisis with air quality in my country, especially in southern Poland. The statistics say that additional deaths, unnecessary deaths due to air pollution every year amounts to the top we reached with COVID. But it doesn't lay as a dramatic and abrupt pressure on the system, because it rose slowly, and now for us it's always been there. But it lays damage that I've never been in a group where so many people had so big proportion of people had asthma, and young people asthma and allergies, as in Krakow where I studied. And yeah, that's also the problem, that something is not abrupt, we can live with stuff that is very bad. And yeah, that's a great example, because that's exactly what I meant. So looking at the broader scope of sustainable development and not monetizing everything, we can see that, for example, in medical science, often it's much easier to have impact with prevention than with cure.
Thank you for your answers. So another thing I'm curious about is that we now have these very rich people, the CEO of, I don't know, Amazon, Facebook, Tesla, and so on. But at one point, they invest these travelings to the other planets. In the other aspects, they are investing quite a lot, especially recently, the environmentalism, the sustainability stuff, and also regeneration. So actually keeping our human species alive and longer. It seems like there's a bit of confliction here. At one point, they want to run away from this planet, but in one point, they want to stay here and keep everyone healthy, and also the environment is healthy. How do you see it? We are talking about the billions of dollars. These are like influential people. As a citizen or like a human being, like which side you should be trust?
First of all, I would like to stress that I'm not one of them. I'm not a CEO of any company, and I don't have billions of dollars in a bank.
Okay, we can stop the interview.
but no, that's an important part of the problem. And I think, first of all, relating to sustainability, in both cases, both going to other planets and the way that they address environmental issues, it's very elitist, and it does not address very much the socioeconomical foundation of the problem. There is also the specter of greenwashing, and of course, many of what they claim is acting on the environmental issues is really diverging to other environmental issues, or just trying to cover other detrimental actions. But of course, it's you can judge them however you want, but they're more children of a system than evil themselves, the people So I don't know how to explain it. I think I don't like going to other planets is obviously I don't even know how to address it. It's not in a framework that in a time framework that we could imagine. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean it doesn't reduce the value of F or of everything we have here. It's a dream, and the things they do here, it is some of that might be in the end important, but it could have been done differently. But it's good if they address it because they still do have a lot of power, and some ways they work might be good ways to work. I mean, it's not everything evil. Speaking of more, like some, I don't want to throw names, but some of them have very bad working practices, but some companies have very good. So it's just that they don't do what they want on our expenses and other people's expenses.
So the another question is then, so if I'm working in the scientific environment, so what would be the things I can consider when I'm doing my experiment in general, broad sense? Are there anything I can be more pay attention to?
Yes. So first of all, I think that's a general rule with sustainability to know that less can be more, and just think twice. That does not cost as much. Think if what you do is important, and just plan your experiment. Know that what you are doing, that you both, of course, use the resources in the lab on the most important thing, but you also use your time on things that matter. I think we actually touched upon another important point is the choice of the problem. So before we talked in medical science about looking at, for example, causes of diseases or cures for them, you can look at what is neglected in your field, and often it is the causes, and it also applies to other fields. So of course also the basic principles of reduce, reuse, recycle. So reduce, we I think science is very important and we should do it, but we should not overproduce experiments that don't add anything new. Reuse, this is kind of a positive story with growing community of publicly available data and these kind of things. Here you can actually combine your experiments with things that people done on other models or things like that, or in other environments. So that would be either reusing or recycle would mean we can talk about how much we do still need to use animal models, but that's the most simple example. You do sacrifice an animal, you can probably look at more than one thing in the animal, more than one organ. Or if you also do some other costly system, something like that.
And so, in your opinion, what are the biggest challenges facing the intersection of sustainable development and science, and how can they be addressed? It could be also related to the future perspective.
Yeah. I think now it's money and prestige. So yeah, like you need money to do science, and where you can get money from is not always connected to good science. I don't even like. Of course, the big problem is lobbyists, but even not getting into it, it might be often. So relating, like contrasting against sustainability and growth, if we allow exploitable organs made with mostly companies to grow as big as they want, they will just take a lot of space in society and the environment, and they will have resources for you to do your science, curiosity driven or whatever driven. And now they will only give you money for things that do not leverage their interests. So that might be a problem. I know a lot of people around who do amazing and important science, and they struggle often with funding and also with getting to good journals. Like in this building, we are now in SciLab Lab. I know that sometimes people doing stuff like toxicology might struggle, or we have some people doing amazing point of care, cheap diagnostics, and this is one of the most amazing technologies that I've seen in this being developed in this city. Things like repurposing CD reading machines to do some tests on the spot wherever you are. But that's not getting. I don't know how they are with money, but that's not getting very, very highly published because, yeah, and we can think of prestige doesn't matter, but it's of course to do science you need to keep some status, and to get money you need to keep some status. So we need to, if we do see the technological applications in the end, we need to think what kind of technological applications are most important for us. Is it something? Yeah, I don't know what the categories are now.
Anything you want to add in this one?
I don't know. I think, of course, there are some details. For example, to be something more specific, now in the height of climate crisis, conferences are a bit of an interesting issue because they are so important for the scientific community, for all the people to get together. But on the other hand, it of course requires, usually if it's a global conference, a lot of flying, and even if and that's a lot of direct impact per person. One can say that scientific community is small, all right, but it's also living as you preach, and that's generally an important point we not touch upon. So if we see all the environmental issues and we live as if they were not happening, we can go out and preach about systemic change. I don't say build a hut in the forest and live without electricity now. You still live in the system in which you are, but showing that you care somehow. So I don't know about how to solve conferences. No.
Okay. And the last and maybe the most important question is how we can facilitate this process, even from a very simple the point of view. If there's a new student come to our lab, for example, what are the first things I can tell this person to be more aware of the environment, the intersection of science? Or it could be also related to how we can connect these different communities, stakeholders, scientists, environmentalists, or the intersections, whatever. And yeah, basically how we can let most of people aware of this and take action?
That's probably the most important question for a viewer in a way. And I think you said it beautifully about connecting all those parts of society. So I think first part is for the people who care about both specific aspects of sustainability or of it in general, to have a space, so like organizations or places in management boards in your local institution. And that's the first thing you can do. Like you can join your student organization if you like it. If you feel like the campus community is where you spend most of your life, you can have a board in your department which assesses its impact and how it can contribute. But it can be also part of your life outside of work and university. So you can join local activist groups, join local Fridays for Future or Extinction Rebellion. They are almost everywhere. You can join, if you're a scientist, you can join an outreach group. In Stockholm, we have, or in Sweden, we have a researchers desk, amazing job. I know we have, for example, one in Poland, the Nauka dla Przyrody, Science for nature or the environment. It's not deal with how you should deal with the translation. And I think the same things are in many other countries. You can also include it in the curricula of or think about in curricula of your courses, or where you go out and teach students. Kind of what you are doing with recording this episode. And I think, yeah.
Because I mean, at the end, we have to be aware, but before it's getting mandatory, I think it's maybe already mandatory. Then there's discussion. But I think to not come there, right? We should start now, from now on, really take it into serious consideration. So by saying this, before closing up, is there anything you want to add? Or any opinion or anything you want to say?
Yeah, I think I can add one important thing. I don't know how clear it was here, but it's not environment versus humans. I think that's the main thing when you use the word sustainability. If you want to use it positively, that's the main thing that is clear here. That it's a chance both not to destroy the world we are in and enjoy it as much as we can, and also to have a society in which all can thrive.
The slogan of the day. I like it.
And it's not just a slogan.
Yeah, no, I mean, we always think about humans are kind of isolated from the environment. We are talking like two different identities. But for us to exist, be available, however we are, actually, we are connected to the environment. So without environment, we are actually not a human.
Yes.
Actually, they are the same entity.
And
if we destroy the environment, basically destroy the human.
And the same system of unbound exploitation exploits the resources, damages the environment, exploits the people, and leads to growing inequalities. And it's a foundation for the income of most authoritarian systems or dictatorships in this world. So yes, sustainability also means using our planet in a more even way, which also acknowledges the fact that we are all connected to it, and we all have the right be part of it. No, you're right. We are all part of it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Chris. And thanks for watching. And please share your thoughts in the comment section. And take care. Till the next time.